Thank you all for being here today. So I just want to go over, just before we begin, a couple of quick housekeeping notes, which I'm sure you heard last time, but I'm just going to go over them again. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Angel. Hello and welcome. I'm a Masters of Counselling student. Now today, this workshop is not something for my course. It's something that I'm doing for my own personal reasons. It's something that I'm very passionate about, and I wanted to be able to give people the opportunity to still have a safe space, even if they can't go to therapy for whatever reason, or they just want some guidance or just a place for understanding, safe place to go. So that was why I created this and why I wanted to keep doing this. So this today will be recorded for educational purposes. No faces other than my own will be in the frame. So you don't have to worry about that. If it does make you uncomfortable, please just let me know. Of course I don't want let me know. Thanks, Rebecca. Of course, this is a respectful space, so if you choose to share something at any point and you don't want that to be included in the final recording, please just let me know at the end and I will, of course, cut that out entirely. So, lastly, this is going to be a discussion about mental health, and that can bring up some strong emotions with some people. So if at any point you do feel overwhelmed or you just need to take a breather, you're free to just go outside. You can just take a breather, or go to the bathroom, grab something to drink, or you can just leave entirely. I'm not going to be offended. So please just do whatever it is that you feel you need for yourself and honor that. So now let's get started. How many of you have ever had this sort of quiet thought? I'm doing everything I'm supposed to, but it still doesn't feel right. Or maybe even, I've done the healing, I've tried all the tools, but I'm still stuck. I'm still living the same day over and over again. How many of you have ever felt that way before? Great. That feeling, that quiet sort of like low sense of internal inertia is something I call psychological fog. It's not quite burnout and it's not quite depression, but it lives somewhere in between. It looks like functioning from the outside. You're checking the boxes, you're showing up, you're staying busy. But inside, it kind of feels like you're drifting, like you're disconnected. Like something's quietly wrong and you can't quite name what. Or maybe you can, but it still doesn't change anything. We're seeing this everywhere lately. So many people are smart, they are capable, and they're self-aware, but they still feel like they've just completely stalled. They're not in a crisis as such, but they're not feeling fulfilled either. They're not giving up, but they're not feeling like they're moving forward. And it's so easy in that space to assume it's a personal flaw. There must be something wrong with me, right? Maybe I'm not disciplined enough. Maybe I'm not spiritual enough. Maybe I'm just stuck like this forever. But here's what's really happening. It's not that you're broken. You're caught in a conflict between your nervous system's need for safety and a deeper drive for change. Your brain doesn't prioritize fulfillment, unfortunately. It oftentimes prioritizes predictability. And that is not anyone's fault, not your fault, not anyone else's. It is very much human nature. From a neurological perspective, the body asks, is this familiar? Not, is this meaningful? If you've lived most of your life chasing approval, chasing stability, or shrinking yourself to stay safe, then the body learns to equate sameness with survival. This is what polyvagal theory calls neuroception, the unconscious scanning of your environment to determine if it's actually safe to move forward. And if that part of you doesn't feel safe, it won't let you take action, no matter how much and how desperate you are to. So here's the first reframe of today that I want you to hold on to. Feeling stuck isn't some sort of flaw. It is actually a signal that something inside of you is trying to protect you. And the way that it's doing that is by keeping things the same, even if the same isn't working anymore now. It's a sign that your goals may have actually outpaced your identity, that your nervous system hasn't quite yet caught up to your growth and where you're heading. So today we're going to untangle that. We'll explore the neuroscience behind resistance, the psychological parts that keep looping old narratives, and the unmet needs that drive even our most confusing and contradicting behaviors. And more importantly, we're going to shine light on the version of you that's already trying to emerge and make change. The part that already knows what's next, but hasn't quite had the permission or maybe the safety to act on it until now. So let's begin with the brain. Most of us believe that when we feel stuck, what we need is more motivation, more discipline, a better plan, more information, and more time to just think, right? But what if I told you that your brain is resisting change, not because you're doing it wrong, but because you're doing it right from that survival perspective? Your brain is not designed to make you fulfilled. Although that would be brilliant, wouldn't it? I would absolutely love that, I know that much. It's designed to make you feel safe. At its core, it's a prediction machine. It builds models of who you are, what the world is, and what's likely to happen next. So it doesn't have to keep relearning the rules every single day, which I think is quite fair. That would be exhausting. And it doesn't care whether those rules are helpful, accurate, or even good for you. All it cares is about, is it familiar? And if something's familiar, no matter how painful it may be, it becomes the path of least resistance for your brain. One system that plays a big role here is the default mode network. This network in your brain that lights up when you're not exactly focused on anything externally specifically. And it's responsible for self-reflection, memory, and future simulations. And yes, overthinking as well. So when you're stuck in your head, looping through stories like, what if I fail? What's wrong with me? Why haven't I figured this out yet? That's not just your thoughts. It's a well-worn neural pathway. And unless it's interrupted with new experiences or new evidence, it will keep returning to it by default. That's what neuroscientists call homeostatic identity defense. Your brain has a model. Change, or in other words, the unknown, is unsafe. You feel anxiety when acting outside your brain's made-up model. You avoid the action, and your avoidance confirms your belief that change is unsafe. And over time, this loop becomes self-protecting, even if it's self-limiting. The brain will always default to what's been repeated, not what's rational, because repetition is cheaper than change. Just like how keeping your slightly run-down old car going and maintained, even though maybe it's not what you want or it's starting to break down, it's still cheaper than buying a new one. This is also why motivation doesn't stick. Because even if your conscious mind wants something new, your nervous system still sees that new thing as a threat. It's not logic that drives your actions. It's typically pattern recognition built on your past experiences. This is called limbic override, when the emotional brain just straight up vetoes the rational plan. You know it's time to speak up, time to take that risk, time to shift new directions. But your body tightens. Your loops start thinking, your thoughts start looping, and something inside you just completely slams the brakes. So let me reframe it this way, because this part is really crucial. You're not lazy, you're actually inherently loyal. Loyal to the behaviors, thoughts, and actions that in the past that you once developed to keep you safe then, at that time. So you're loyal to the patterns that worked until now, when they don't anymore. And that's why you're here. And the good news is, what is learned can be updated. Not by force, not by willpower, but by giving your nervous system new evidence. So, now that we've looked at the biology of resistance, how your brain protects the familiar, let's explore the psychology. Belief systems, the internal narratives, because often the parts of us that resist isn't just protecting our body. It's protecting a version of our identity that may no longer hold true for us, but it still feels it's necessary. Because while your nervous system runs on patterns, your psychology runs on stories. We all unconsciously carry stories about who we are, what we're capable of, and what's possible for us. Stories that we probably didn't consciously choose, but we live by them every single day. Back in the 1960s, psychologist Martin Seligman coined the term learned helplessness. He found that when animals were exposed to an environment where there was absolutely no exit, doors closed, there was no way to escape, they eventually stopped trying. And even later, when the doors were opened and escape was possible, they didn't move. They didn't try anymore. They learned that effort didn't matter. And now let's bring that into real life scenarios. Let's say you try to set boundaries and people lash out or step over them and just completely disregard your boundaries. You express your truth and how you genuinely feel, and you get dismissed or just completely ignored. You take a risk and it backfires and you get hurt. After a while, a belief forms. What's the point? And not because it's true, but because your nervous system remembers and holds on to past pain better than it does progress. And this is where psychological inertia becomes self-sustaining. And here's how that loop works. You experience a failure or a trigger. You feel a sense of shame, fear, or helplessness because of it. You end up withdrawing, you end up overcompensating, or just avoid it entirely. And that behavior of avoidance, overcompensation, actually reinforces the story of, I'm not capable, I'm too much, I'm not good enough, I'll always mess things up. Most people don't self-sabotage because they hate themselves. Absolutely not. They do it because a part of them is trying to protect their identity from more disappointment. So it's not laziness, it is the brain's protective logic. And here's what's even more frustrating about it. Most people try to change by thinking harder. We can just think more harder, we can just look through every single little detail, we can figure this out. They read more books, they set new goals, they try to mindset their way out. But the brain doesn't update your identity through logic. It updates through evidence and lived experience. So unless your system experiences something different, the old belief will remain in charge. This is why affirmations and vision boards, not always, but often fall short. The nervous system doesn't respond to ideas. It responds to repetition, to emotion, and to safety. It needs proof, actual proof, not just pep talks. So much of what we call being stuck is really just a negotiation between two parts of us. One that wants to evolve, wants to progress, wants to change, and one that simply just wants to survive. And this is where we need a framework that helps us to understand what each part of us, what each part is trying to get from us, right? Because it's not random. It's driven by core human needs. And that's what we'll explore next. And at this point, you might be wondering, if I want to change and I know what's holding me back, why can't I just do it? And the answer is because you're in conflict. And it's not with other people, it's with yourself. One part of you wants progress, and that's probably the part that you're aware of. And the other part wants to protect and to stay the same. And often that part is the subconscious one. Both are trying to help you. Absolutely. They just have a very different idea about how to do that. Every behavior you've struggled to shift, especially the ones that confuse or frustrate you, is doing something important. Because beneath every behavior is a core need trying to get met. We don't do things for no reason. And here's where things get really interesting. Sometimes your needs compete with each other. One part of you craves expansion, growth, something more, while the other fears what you'll lose if you actually grow. So let's use a framework that maps this out really clearly. According to Tony Robbins' model, rooted in Maslow and Deci and Ryan, we all share 6 universal psychological needs. We have the need for certainty, which is to feel safe, where you can predict things and you feel like you have a sense of control over what's going on. And on the opposite side of that coin, we actually have a need for variety as well. Things can't always just be predictable all the time and the same all the time. We do want novelty, we want surprise, we want something different sometimes as well. We also have a need for significance. We want to feel that we're important, that things are important. We want to feel that we have a uniqueness, that we have a special identity. We also have a need for love and connection. We want to feel belonged. We want to have a tribe of people who we love and feel intimate with, that we can share things with, and we want to feel accepted. We also have a need for growth, to expand, to learn more, to master new skills. And we have a need for contribution, which is giving more than yourself. And every behavior, whether it's healthy or harmful, is a strategy to meet one or more of these needs. But here is the trap that most people fall into. People who feel stuck usually want growth or contribution, but they're stuck meeting their own needs for certainty, significance, or connection through strategies that require them to place more. For examples, if I stay quiet, I'll stay liked. If I don't try, I know I won't fail. If I keep helping others, no one will question whether I'm struggling or not. And as I hope you can feel from this now, these aren't flaws. They are protective blueprints. Adaptive, even intelligent, especially in environments where your survival, be it physical, be it emotional, be it mental, once depended on these behaviors. That's why you created them in the first place. They served a purpose at the time. And here's a deeper question. Which of these core needs do you feel dominates all of your decisions that you operate from, maybe even at the cost of others? Just check in with yourself. Which of these feels the most familiar? Which of them feels starved and is just craving for you to experience it again? And now, what are you afraid you'll lose if you stop operating from that dominant one? This is where real compassion actually begins. Because we don't resist growth because it's hard. We resist because we believe it will cost us something extremely vital. For example, if I succeed, I'll outgrow my friends, my co-workers, and my family. If I speak my truth, I'll lose love and people will reject me. If I rest, I'll lose my sense of worth and my sense of purpose. These are what we call shadow attachments. They're emotional contracts that we made a long time ago. The nervous system holds on to them because letting go feels like a threat to our identity, to our sense of belonging, or like a threat that we're going to lose control. And what I want you to know is that we're not trying to pick a side. We're not trying to choose one over the other. We're trying to create new strategies that let you meet your real needs without betraying yourself in the process. Because until your nervous system believes that your growth is safe, it will always choose protection and what it can predict over your growth and progress. Now let's take this even deeper, because inside each of us, there isn't just one self. There's a whole team working together. Maybe not always working together, but some parts of you want to grow. Some parts want to stay the same and to stay safe. Some parts are frozen in time, still responding to old wounds that you haven't looked at for years. And it's not that you're broken or missing something or doing something wrong. It's very, very human. It's just that your inner system is in disagreement. And no one's been given a new role yet. So by now you've probably had at least one quiet moment of recognition, maybe just a breath, maybe silent. Yeah, that's me. Who feels like they've resonated with at least something from this so far? Good, that means we're on the right track. All I want you to know is that what's happening is that you've just outgrown the strategies that once kept you safe. That's all that's happening. You see, no one stays stuck without a reason. The brain doesn't just do random. Every behavior, even the ones that you hate, is meeting one or more of those core needs from before. Even the ones that are often outdated, messy, or destructive behaviors that you've got. That's why we need to get curious and we need to start asking questions. What is this behavior giving or providing me? Or what is this behavior protecting me from? Because that need underneath is very real and very valid. It's allowed to be there. We could have a look at procrastination. Procrastination might be protecting you from feeling shame or protecting you from the assumed failure that you assume you'll meet. People pleasing might be preserving your sense of belonging within that group. Indecision might be preventing you from losing something or losing someone. Overworking might be your nervous system's attempt to prove your worth. And even chronic anxiety might be your mind's way of bracing for pain so you're never caught off guard again. That's why we can't just get rid of a behavior. We have to understand its function, then replace the strategy to not the need. We need to replace the strategy for meeting that core need. In therapy, we call this secondary gain, the hidden benefit of staying stuck. Until that gain or that need is uncovered, your system will protect that behavior, even if another part of you is desperate for change. Because the truth is, some part of you might not want to change. And that's not because it's defiant or because it's broken. It's just because it still thinks it's protecting you by doing this. And here's what internal family systems gives us something powerful too. You're not actually one fixed identity. You're a system made up of parts, each with their own history, role, and emotional logic. A manager part might try to control everything to keep you safe. A firefighter part might distract you with overwork or Netflix when pain or discomfort arises. And an exiled part might be carrying an old wound that no one has listened to for years. And your stuckness, that's just one part, doing its best with a very outdated instructions manual. So what if that part of you that's stuck is actually a part that still thinks you're 10 years old, trying to protect you in the only way that it knows how? What if it's not sabotaging you? It's just mistrained in what safety looks like. Until part of you trusts that change is safe, it will resist, even if the rest of you wants it with everything you've got. So the real goal is not to overpower resistance. The goal is to understand it, to thank it, you developed this in the first place for a reason. So thank it for a job well done. It worked at that time, but it can be let go now. The role is now redundant, and after thanking it, listen to what it's afraid of losing. So you can show it a new way forward. I do have some reflection exercises within the workbook to kind of like go over this as well that you can do in your own time, just because it is, you might want in your own time just kind of like think about them a little bit more. So you can do that in your own time whenever you want. Because so many people try to change their lives without ever updating the internal roles that run the show. And once you realize that you're not just oneself, you can start choosing which part of you who leads. And that leads us into the next layer. Not just how to take action, but how to rebuild your identity from the inside out. not based on survival, but based on your values. Let's pause and take stock of where we are. You've seen how the brain loops what's familiar. You've learnt how new behavior, even the very annoying, unwanted stuck kind, is meeting some sort of core need. And you've discovered that parts of you formed in earlier chapters of your life are still trying to protect you with the tools that they had at the time. So now comes the real question. If the old identity kept you safe, who are you becoming instead? And more importantly, what would it take for your nervous system to believe that this new version of you is possible and safe? I alluded to this before, but most people think behavior change is about willpower or discipline. But long-term change doesn't come from goals. It comes from identity shifts. In neuroscience, this is called self-referential neuroplasticity. The more you act like a kind of person, the more your brain wires that version of you as real. Hibbean learning explains it this way, and I'm sure a lot of you have probably heard this before. Neurons that wire together. But more practically, identity is not discovered, it's trained. So through behavior, through repetition, through reinforcement, you rewire your brain. Think of identity as a loop. You have a belief about yourself, which determines your behavior and how you act. These actions and behavior then create the evidence that reinforces that belief. If you truly believe that you're the kind of person that always fails, you'll unconsciously act in ways that align with that belief. You'll collect evidence that supports it, and the identity loop tightens. So most people try to change behavior while still believing they're the same. And when the nervous system doesn't have proof that you've changed, it defaults back to the old pattern because you haven't built and collected that new evidence yet. So here's the shift. You don't need to feel like the person you want to become. You need to act like them until your nervous system believes you. You need to create and stockpile all that evidence and all that proof for it to fall back on. And you don't just need to overhaul your life. That is a little bit much. Just create micro evidences that say, this is who I'm becoming now. For example, saying no became an act of boundary building. Expressing your opinion could be reinforcing your values and your sense of authenticity. Following through on a small task becomes proof that you can finish what you start. So, let's do this one together. If you guys haven't got paper, I'll give you guys some. I just want you to answer these questions that I'm about to ask. And you can write it down, or if you actually don't want to write it down, you don't have to. Absolutely, you can just think about it if you want. So what I want you to do is just complete this sentence. I'm becoming the kind of person who. And I want you to write down everything you see for yourself. I'm becoming the type of person who. What actions would you take? And now ask, what core need or value guides this version of me? And then finally, what's one small behavior I can do this week that proves it's already happening? I'm already becoming that person. Just one small act. So now, if you are comfortable, I want to do a little exercise to also just help really set that into yourself now. So if you want to, you can close your eyes or just soften your gaze if you don't feel comfortable closing your eyes fully. So we're just going to do a little exercise just to reinforce this new you. So imagine that you're going to bed tonight, getting comfy, in your PJs, nice warm bed, even though it's a little bit cold out, the bed's nice and warm. And you go to sleep with these new ideas and these new thoughts. and wake up tomorrow and you're already just 5% more aligned with the new identity that you just named, how would you start your day? How would you speak? What would you tolerate less of? And what would you walk towards, not because for the outcome, but because that's just who you are now? Perfect. Opening your eyes again whenever you're ready, or you can keep your eyes closed if you want to stay with that feeling for a little bit longer. And if you relapse into old behaviors, which can happen, I want you to see it not as a failure. It's very normal and human to fall back into old patterns. All it means is that your older identity got reactivated. So instead of self-judgment, return to your anchoring statement that we just wrote down of who you are now. And say it to yourself in moments. I am learning to become this new identity, and actually name it. I am this person now, and I'm practicing it, and I'm collecting evidence for it. And this process is not about flipping a switch, although it'd be great if we could just flip a switch and immediately change. It's about teaching your nervous system who you are becoming through action. So you've walked through the fog. You've mapped your core needs, met all the parts of you at play. Now let's try to tie that all together now. So you leave not feeling pressured, but hopefully leave feeling with more clarity. So let me leave you with something a little more honest than what you're probably used to or will read in self-help books. Because the truth is, you're not stuck because you're weak. You're stuck because your system is actually working perfectly, just with an outdated instructions manual. And here are 3 truths that you need to know if you want to stay unstuck. 1, you don't need more motivation. You need a different internal agreement. As long as your nervous system still believes that change threatens your safety, no amount of inspiration will stick. That's why this process isn't about trying harder. It's about renegotiating the unconscious contracts you've made with yourself. The contract that says, if I stay small, I'll stay safe. The contract that says, if I don't try, I can't fail. The work is actually just to rewrite the terms of those contracts, gently and consistently, and most importantly, with proof. Number 2, resistance is intelligent, so don't treat it like the enemy if you can. You're not lazy, you're not self-sabotaging, you're protecting yourself in the only way your old self knew how to. And the part that's resisting change, and you need to ask that part, what are you afraid would happen if I stopped doing this? You can really get somewhere deep if you ask that. And then show it something new. Give it that proof that it needs. And number 3, identity shapes behavior, and identity is trained, not discovered. Stop feeling it like you need to be a different person before you act. You don't become someone new by overthinking things. You become someone new by proving it to your system, one believable action at a time. Just start small, repeat often, and let the brain catch up. It's not a sort of to-do list. It's a mental model for moving forward when your motivation fades and the doubt starts to creep back in. You need to honor that stuck part. Assume that it's actually been doing this for you and is serving a purpose of some kind. And then ask what it's protecting. Find out what that underlying need or value that it's craving or pain that it's trying to avoid. And then name your new emerging identity. Keep it short, keep it real, and don't wait until you feel ready. We just did that exercise before. And then do something that aligns with that new identity. So Not just to prove it, but to practice it, to build up and fill your backpack with evidence that you can take with you. Getting unstuck isn't about fixing yourself. It's about realizing that you were never stuck to begin with. You were just very loyal to older versions of you that helped you survive. And now you're allowed to outgrow that version, not because you reject its entire existence, that's a little bit much, but because you're ready. It isn't about arriving. It's about being integrated enough to move, even if you still carry doubt or fear or resistance. The goal here isn't perfection. It's to become someone that your nervous system recognizes as safe enough to change. And from that place, small becomes sustainable. Sustainable becomes embodied. And that is how transformation really lasts. So you will find a QR code on your handout that links to a free guided breathwork audio I created just for you guys. You can use it anytime you feel super stuck or super lost. It's my gift to you for coming today. I'm sorry, I've run out of handouts. I do have online ones that I can share with you guys. And if it resonated, you're welcome to stay connected. I will be running regular monthly sessions just like this, same third Wednesday of the month, same time, same place. So if you're happy to come along and you want to keep coming, I would love to keep supporting your growth with this. So thank you for bringing your presence, your honesty, and your heart here today. Thank you so much, everyone.